Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to discuss education and how it has impacted me as a writer, as an author, and my just the whole writing journey and I'll say author career. Sometimes we don't really want to say career all the time because we're in the mindset of, oh, that's not really a career, especially since it's not very profitable in the very well, not short term. Think some know that even in long term, you get a big deal, but that big deal is chopped up into little itty bitty breadcrumbs that you end up still having to work a full-time job. So yeah, my author career. Um I guess I'll start try to as early on as I can remember. Right around elementary school, I was writing a lot of poetry. So I tell people a lot I was a poet first. I was not interested in reading novels that much. I wasn't interested in writing stories. I just love writing poetry. And I remember in class we did I believe it was like a talent show. It was something where I'm not positive if it was a talent show or if it was just a writing contest. If too long ago. I was maybe 9, 10 years old. So very long. So about 9, 10 years old, I entered the contest with a poem and I won first place. So I really started off right then. That was my main push to discover my love of writing poems and also the the excitement of sharing my work. And I'm not going to say, oh, from then on, I was over here doing spoken word. I was, just itching for that thrill again of winning. I wasn't. I was a very shy kid, very shy. But I kept my poems to myself, but I shared them more often. With my friends or my teachers. I wasn't afraid to enter contests anymore. And I wanted to read more poems. I got into it. At the time I still wanted to be an NBA player. I was obsessed with basketball at the time. But I started to have an equal passion. So that's when everything started for me during elementary school, right around that time. Trying to trying to think what the actual grade was, but I'm not going to try to do it. But that's where it started. I really my class, my teacher who did that writing contest, whatever it was, writing contest or a talent show, kicked off my journey. Education for me is very, very important. And that's why I'm doing this video. It's so important, no matter what level, what level, grade level, it's important to instill the arts into students. It's important to build their creativity, to expose them to different literature and creative writings and music and art. It's so, so important. And when you get to older grades, especially in high school, you start to understand why these things are so important. And especially for someone of color, how important it can be, because there are a lot of expressions, a lot of history, a lot of voicing our beliefs and voicing our our troubles through art. You know, the Harlem Renaissance. You have so many individuals who not just started a movement, but who were able to invoke emotion through their work, who were able to tell stories through their work. And many of those stories are so, so important. It's so important that they are told. And, you know, from the cavemen, and from I don't want to butcher, I don't want to say it wrong, but through different generations, if they're, you know, doing a painting on the cave walls, or they're, you know, doing different crafts and different artwork, there's a story behind it. There's history behind it. And it's so important that at each education grade, you are exposing children to more than one culture. You are exposing them to different voices. You are helping them to understand emotions in a different way, in a different platform. You're helping them to express their own emotions in their own stories. It's so, so important. And I know a lot of people say, well, you know, they're finger painting, or, oh, it's just art. And, you know, you don't get 6 figures. You don't get a lot of money doing, you know, writing poetry or making a painting, etc. You know, it's 1 in a million who become famous. I get the economic side of things. I understand where people are coming from in that direction, but life is more than money. Life is more than the economic side of things. And I think that someone can be exposed to art, even if they want to have it as a career. They can do that and still find other ways to live comfortably. You know, it doesn't have to be just one track. You know, the journey of life is multiple routes. Even if you have one career, it might not be your career from when you were first started your job journey as a kid to when you retire. And even if you have a career that you're working on, you say, oh, I'm going to retire in this career, there are other ways that you could still, you can still have hobbies, you can still make money in other avenues. But what's really important for me, based on my writing journey, was being exposed at a very early age to books, literature, art. I went to museums as a kid. My teachers from very early on, you know, we did art classes, and we were exposed to different types of art, painting, we did clay work, we did so many different things, where we not only did the activities, but we also learned some history behind it. So it wasn't just us, oh, you know, did a little cute painting for our parents. We learned about the styles. We learned about what oil painting is from acrylic painting. We learned about different eras in history, and how each era had, you know, their specialty, what was popular during this time frame and this time frame. And when you look at different artwork, and when you go to museums, especially as kids, we ask a whole lot of questions. Oh, that's so, we asked a bunch of questions, and then hopefully the adults around us will answer those questions, and will have knowledge enough to be able to answer those questions in full. So right early on, I was exposed to a lot of great things from at home and in school, but this video is focusing on education and the school system. So that's where it started off. Me getting number one, my little number one blue ribbon for my poem. And I didn't think of it because I don't, again, I tell y'all all the time, I don't script my videos. So I didn't think to, I didn't think until just now. I should have looked up that poem so I could read it to y'all. I still have it. But I can't memorize. I do not memorize stuff at all. But I'll try to, I guess I could, excuse me, can make a comment or something underneath the video later. So anyway, I'll try to remember to share the poem. And then later on, I started writing poems and poetry and, you know, all kinds. But I did mainly a lot of freeform. At that time, I was not in, especially at that grade level, we weren't doing, you know, haikus and sonnets. We weren't very structuralized. It was just, we were exposed to it, and then that was it. I mean, we didn't have creative writing at that low grade. So I just freeform. I just wrote poetry without thinking of, you know, structure. Other than, you know, sometimes I'll try to rhyme, and sometimes I'll read something, and I will try to, where's that book I had that was all beat up with the poems? Yeah. So here's one book you see it's all beat up. It's really beat up. I got this book a long time ago. Okay, let me see. Ooh. I hope I'm not a thief. I don't know. It says the stamp discarded. I don't know. I'm gonna look into that. I'll put that aside for now. That's from high school. So I thought I had one. Okay, moving on. So going up to middle school, I was writing poems almost daily. I was writing maybe more than 5, maybe sometimes a day. And I definitely, again, I was just writing mainly freeform. And then I shared it even more because I was getting older. I was writing more, expressing more. And I was learning a little more about English in general, just about, you know, grammar and stuff like that. So I was just feeling myself, thinking, oh, I'm improving, I'm getting better. People are liking my poems. And there's just anything based on anything that I've experienced, but also just inspiration. Sometimes I would listen to a song, sometimes songs I shouldn't have been listening to. But I would just listen to anything, listen to music, watch TV shows, movies, and anything that would sound cool, or like a lyric, or maybe an actor or actress, they did something in the movie. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, or that's, you know, and I would just write off of that. And soon I started, you know, sharing more. So then some people enjoyed this. Some people, I think, were just nice. And then others, I had one teacher. I'm going to try not to, throughout this video, sometimes I slip up, but I'm going to try not to in this video to mention any names, because one thing, I don't want to forget anybody who should have a mention. So I'm just not going to mention anybody at all. Well, okay, but I had one teacher. I showed one of the poems to, and she was concerned. But thankfully she was a really cool, she was one of my most memorable teachers I ever had. She definitely took me in the hallway one time. She was like, what? She definitely was like, are you okay? Pretty much, pretty much that. But then, we talked. He's like, yeah, it doesn't, poetry is an expression that doesn't always have to be, a direct expression. And definitely, not a lot of people understand that. So definitely later on in life, couple, here and there, you'll have people wonder, you know, is this a real life? I'm like, no, it's not. It's fiction. It's not nonfiction. But it was funny. We had a conversation, that teacher and I, about just creativity, and she was like, oh yeah, I hope I didn't offend you. I probably came at it, not very sensitive. I was like, no, it's fine. You don't have to be sensitive about it because it's not true. It's not like it's not like it's me, my story. It's just poetry. Like especially some of the poems I was writing. I said definitely you should know at that age. None of that stuff is real. But anyway, so that was early on. I kind of also started to realize how some readers might examine my work, how they will receive what they read. So I try to be more intentional with how I write, to try to make sure it doesn't seem like it's, truthful. And I was like, this is, poetry. It flows. It's not, I could write about water and trees. That doesn't mean I'm a tree of water. So I got encouraged and motivated to write poetry at an early age in, elementary school. But as I got older in education, some of you all might have the same experience, that as you get older and as your writing increases and as you increase those you share with, you also will get diverse feedback. It won't always be positive like you're used to. And especially at an older age, people are more likely to tell you the truth if they hate it or not, or if they think something wrong with you. So I definitely had to navigate that, but it did not change how I write, really, just how I share certain words with certain people. And it did make me less not driven, but less open. But I soon realized, again, getting older, outside of middle school, once I hit high school, it was all over. Like it didn't matter what people said. It didn't matter, and it really mattered. I went from just a high note in elementary school, and then middle school, it kind of evened out. I was like, trying to figure out my voice, trying to figure out not morals, but try to figure out what I'm willing to put up with and how I'm going to let others' opinions affect me. So education for my writing journey at that early stage was, a high. It then kind of evened out, and then high school it went back up. And it was no real fault to that teacher or other teachers and students in middle school where it kind of went down. It wasn't their fault. It was more so me getting older and having to really start self-discovering and really understanding, and not understanding, but being confident in my voice, in my writing voice. And that's so hard, especially with, adolescence and going into just getting everything around you is changing. You're changing. So your mindset is changing. Your feelings are changing. those around you are going through the change as well. So it definitely it wasn't it was mainly because of that. It wasn't because of my education. So definitely still very thankful for my early education that exposed me to artwork and poetry and novels, and so very appreciative. And I encourage everyone to be exposed early on. So things really started to peak, get really just high notes in high school. And that might sound kind of weird for some people, like, oh, high school, that's probably where, that's where like peer pressure and bullying and all that other stuff. That stuff happened before high school. I don't know why people keep trying to fool themselves. They over here, especially I don't even read it, but I get reviews and I listen to different things where, like, a lot of the like young adult fiction, teen fiction stuff, they might touch on like bullying and different stuff like that, but then they don't do it like in middle school. Like, middle school is so brutal. Like, what they think that I don't even understand, because a lot of people who are writing books, all these adults, y'all just blink out middle school, even elementary school. Y'all just blacked it all out. Y'all know it's not just high school where drama happens. So when high school came along, I'll pick this book back up because I'll look inside of it in a second. But high school came along, my education with writing got even better. My English professors were amazing. I said professors. My English teachers were amazing. All the ones I had, they were great in how they exposed me to different literature. And in high school, you have more, where I went to high school in Washington, D.C., you get exposed even more to literature that is, meaningful, that has a message behind it. You examine the literature more. You're more analytical. You learn how to be creative thinkers, to be critical thinkers, and you just you're in a whole nother world. So I remember in freshman year, we was reading, I believe it was freshman year, we was reading Their Eyes Are Watching God. Love Laura Neal. Love the book. Then we watched the movie. Michael Ealy. Okay. I need to stay focused. That man. Okay. And of course, we have him starring next to Halle Berry, of course. Which she don't need no introduction. So, I was exposed to multiple literature that is really pushing young adults to be critical thinkers, to have discussions, to have debates on topics, to understand history. So it is even more important. My high school education was definitely most important for me with my writing journey, because then I was still thinking about basketball. But I went from a sort of like a special ed school straight into a regular school. So my education level with certain subjects was not on the same par with the other students. And my freshman year, my grades were horrible. I didn't understand how to really study. I didn't understand a lot of the subject matter. I was playing catch up. I was so behind on many things, especially math. I was horrible in math. I'm still horrible in math. But it's because math is a step process. And if you don't understand any of the steps early on, you're not going to get it. So no one really taught me early on those steps. But anyway, focusing on the high school education, mainly like English literature. These professors, they gave me the exposure to literature, and you say, well, how is that really, with poetry? It shifted. So that's why I'm really bringing it up, because in high school is where I shifted from poetry to writing novels, writing stories, writing short stories. And all the books I was reading, sometimes I didn't read them all, but the books I was forced to read were so alluring. I was just like, okay, I'm starting to enjoy reading. I'm starting to understand different techniques. I'm starting to really like this author and the background and their history and their life. But I didn't really appreciate, and I say this all the time, I didn't really appreciate books until I read Keisha's Legacy series. I read Keisha's Dark, the very first novel in the series. And I think that was sophomore year of high school. I think it was sophomore year. Sophomore year of high school, I read that novel. And I was obsessed. Obsessed. I'm telling you, obsessed. I was reading it over and over. I was over here just dreaming and fantasizing about the different characters, having my own little daydreaming in class. I was doing the computer, looking up stuff. And then I was always at the bookstore because I wanted to know when the next book would be out. And back then, we didn't have a lot of, well, at least I didn't have all this social media stuff. I wasn't on social media at the time. I didn't have a cell phone. And I didn't have a group of friends that enjoyed books as much as I did. So I didn't understand how I could find out when the next book is coming out, how I can find out, different things about the author and other books they had. I had to learn different things as I went along because I kept going to the bookstore. I was living in the bookstore almost every day after school. I was going to the bookstore so I can pick up a book, or I can harass the people about, oh, when is this author's next book coming out? And, because I just wanted to make sure I kept buying every book in that series. I wanted to keep buying it. And then that helped me because I was living at the bookstore. Borders. That's my bookstore. I was going to Borders a lot. I was going to Borders a lot in Silver Spring when they had the Borders there. And then there was a bookstore in Union Station. I'm trying to think if it was a Borders there as well. What bookstore that was. But yeah, Borders was my bookstore. No offense to Barnes and Nobles. But Borders, that was it for me. I was always in the Borders every week. Even if it was only once a week, depending on how busy school was, or, hanging out with my friends. As I got older, I kept, hanging out with the friends. But it was at least, at minimum a week. Even if I didn't buy nothing, I was just going around just checking out books. It had to have been at least 2 times a week, two times on a bad week. But on a good week, I'll be there almost every day after school. Almost every other day. So that really helped me to get into books. And let me tell you the story. I picked up the book because I was in a class, my professors from freshman year to that sophomore year were starting me to appreciate books more, having me read more, and I was kind of liking it. I didn't do it all the time, but I was like, okay, I like it. And if it wasn't for them, I would never have picked up that book. So that's why I said education is so important, and making it so it's not just a summer reading chore. It's not something like, oh, we're going to read this book for class And the teacher's not even interested. Teacher's like, okay, we're going to read this. Read this at home. Oh, what you think about it? Okay, do this little paper assignment. All right. No, if you have a teacher that's into the book and read the book themselves and really know the book, they're talking to you with enjoyment. They're talking to you about multiple things about the book, and they can have a conversation with you. It's always beneficial, especially for me, to have a conversation with the teacher about something I'm reading, because then you start getting into things that you might not have really thought about at the time when you was reading. You might listen to others' opinion and see that, dang, we read the same book, but your thoughts are completely different from mine. And then you can really get into it, you can debate, and it's more fun if you have a teacher who is actually knowledgeable about the book, but also encourages in-class discussion about the book. So my freshman and sophomore, my teachers helped to start molding me into the mindset of reading can be fun. But it wasn't fun for me until I read that book. And I made sure to say that because the book I picked up outside of class. So I wanted to make sure that I gave more of a reason why I even thought to pick up the book. I was at my friend's house. We was having like a sleepover. I think it was after like a party or something. Birthday party, or maybe it was before. I think it was after her birthday party. We had like a sleepover, and then we ended up back at her house, and it was her book. I believe it was her book. And I said, oh, can I borrow this? You know, because I was reading it. I didn't have nothing to do, and I just wanted to read something because I was bored at the time. I was in there bored. I forgot what we was doing. I think we was waiting to, I don't know, go home, go somewhere, go part ways. And I started reading it. I was like, oh, okay, well, ain't nothing for me to do. Honestly, like no video game. She had no video game. I would have been playing my video games. But yeah, I was just sitting there, you know, chilling, waiting around. Saw the book, picked it up, and I started reading. And I was hooked. I was reading, and then we had to go. And I was like, can I please borrow this? Can I please borrow this? And she was like, yeah. Thank you. She said yes. And I'm telling you, I was glued to that book. Glued. Even though it's a fantasy novel, I couldn't really pronounce most of the words. But I still. Oh. I was glued to that novel. And I kept reading, and I was obsessed. I found myself not wanting to go out, not wanting to do homework. I was just obsessed with that book. So it made me become a reader. I did not buy books if it was not, you know, forced upon me, if it was not a class requirement. I didn't buy books. And I'm telling you, I didn't always read my assignments during the summertime or even for homework. I just was like, okay, some books are cool. I like the conversations in class. This movie looks cool. I like the movie. I was just okay with it. I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't as bad as I thought. You know, reading can be all right, can be good, but that book, I was in love, obsessed, going to the bookstore all the time. And because I went to the bookstore all the time and I was waiting for her next book, I picked up other books. And loved them and just grew my vocabulary. It grew my skill set as a writer myself. And it challenged me to write stories. So instead of just writing poetry, I started feeling confident. I started feeling motivated. I started feeling like I had my own stories to tell. So I started writing stories. So that's why I say high school for me was just everything. for my journey, because I would have either kept just writing poetry, or I might have even, because right now it's been a couple of years since I've really been writing poetry a lot. So I probably would have just stopped writing, if it wasn't for that period of my life. Picking up that book and having those teachers that made me even want to pick up the book. The book and that author, Jacqueline Carey, is the reason I'm an author today. The reason I am in love with reading and books. But if it wasn't for those teachers, I would have never even cared to pick up the book. Even if I was bored, I would have just been looking at paint, looking at the wall, maybe on my little cell phone. But no, I didn't have a cell phone then. But you know what I'm saying? If you aren't exposed to books, if you aren't exposed to books in a right way that motivates you, that makes you think that some books can be cool, can be fun, you're not going to pick up a book by yourself on your own. You're not going to think, oh, okay, there's some books over there, let me pick up a book and read it. No, you have to have something in you to motivate you to even pick up the book. And those teachers motivated me to even give that book a chance. And I'm so happy that they did that it was something in me that gave that book a chance. It just changed everything for me. So my high school education was pivotal, and it just made me start my journey to really start it as a writer. But then I was just picking up everything. But I still was doing poetry. I was doing poetry a lot in high school. It wasn't until junior year where I really was serious about being a writer and writing novels and writing poetry and etc. I wanted to be published underneath that author's, publishing company. I think it was Tor Publishing. I was just obsessed. I was like, I want to meet her. I want to be published underneath her publishing company. Well, that, publishing company that publishes her. I want to be under the same company. I'm just researching everything about how I can make this career happen. So until junior year, I pretty much wanted to be a basketball player. But junior year, I was focused on being a writer. I wanted to be an author, full time. Nothing else mattered. So, but I was still writing poetry. I was still very poetic, still enjoyed the freedom of poetry. Poetry was my first love, and I grew on from it. I still wish I could just write like I used to. I don't know if it's just because as you sometimes get older. I don't know if you're more cynical. I don't know. And I don't know what happens to your creativity as you get older. But I don't really, everybody who follows me know I don't really write poetry much anymore. But that's all I used to write. But I used to pick up everything, even go to the library. And I was picking up this book because this is the oldest book I have. Unless I have somewhere hiding somewhere. This is the oldest poetry book that I got when I was in high school. So this is Stevenson, that's the author, I'm assuming. The Standard Book of Shakespeare Quotations. See if you can see it. But this thing is so old, it's just falling apart. And I didn't do this to the book, y'all, okay? I know how to treat books. This wasn't me. But this thing is falling apart. But I was laughing earlier in the video because I was like, this says that it was a gift to, I guess, my school library. And it says, for reference, not to be taken from this room. And I'm like, I hope I didn't steal. Because it's so long ago, I can't remember. All that noise. I can't remember if I, what happened. But I know I was never, well, I mean, shamefully as a very, very, barely, a little wee child, I think I did steal some gum one time. And then those magazines that used to have the posters in them, just rip out the posters of the magazine, don't buy the magazine. I didn't think that was stealing at the time, but I felt very bad. And I even thought a couple of years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go to that store and give them some money. It's like, how much were those magazines back then I took that poster from? Maybe I should just give them like a $200 check and be done with it. Because I'm such the person, I'm like, if anything, I don't care. I made my brother go back inside Walmart one time because it was like a Sudoku or some type of little tiny book. And it was like $1 or something. And the person, I noticed that they didn't get it. They didn't pay for it. I mean, they, ring it up. I was like, nope, we packing the car, but we got to bring this back to the store and we got to pay for it. I don't care if we all the way to the car. We gonna go back up there and pay for it. But see, I still got my little notations in here. Because at the time, originally, my favorite poet was William Shakespeare. But then, I started really enjoying Edgar Allan Poe in high school. So those are the two that had the most influence on me. But then, later on, kind of senior year into college, my favorite poet has been William Blake. But I'm moving too far ahead. So I'm just, I don't know why I got all these, things. I have a little note thing for the poem Flesh and Blood, and then on the page Flood, and then Flowers. I do remember Flowers. I like Flowers. I like that poem. I'll try to remember if I bookmarked these because I wanted to use quotes or if I just enjoyed it. Oh, I like this sonnet. As I Hope. I like that one. What's it say? 4432. As I Hope. Okay. But yeah, this is, but so you won't think I stole it. I'm that thief. But it said discarded on the back of this. So I think it was one of the books that they just gave me because it was so beat up. And then this is another one that I had for a very long time. I don't really throw away my books. And again, you see my bookmarks. Even though I was a huge book fan and buying stuff, I didn't waste my money buying bookmarks because definitely at the time, bookmarks were not as cool as they are now. And I still don't really buy them. I don't. I will, though. I will. Once I start really getting back into buying books. Because it's been a couple of years since I really been focused on buying novels. One, they're expensive. And I've been, doing a lot of volunteer work. A lot of just not having time, especially in college. I thought nothing would hold me down from reading and writing, but college, it really slowed me down. I didn't buy a lot of books, and I didn't buy a whole lot of books. I didn't read a whole lot of books outside of class. And it was mainly just, money was the issue. Money was a big issue. So I have a couple of books that I bought most recently. Nora Roberts' Year One, the Bill Clinton and James Patterson book, Adrini Young. I think Michael Conley. I think that's a new book too. And then this one, Zealot and the Pawn. So I bought a couple the what maybe outside of my buying indie novels. I think maybe 7 traditionally published books I bought within the last since maybe 2018. So I'm shamefully behind with buying books and supporting authors. But I'm trying. And I bought a lot of self-published authors and indie authors, and I was like, okay, well, it makes up for for not buying these sort of novels and books. But anyway, so high school definitely it was my my push, my reason for being able to pick up that book, my favorite book. Well, not my favorite book, the second one. I like the second book more in that series. But it started my passion for reading. High school, my passion for reading and my passion for writing started right then, and it never stopped. I was writing poetry more often. I started writing stories, and you definitely, in high school, they gonna tell you what they think. And high school is the cesspool of opinions. You are definitely going to always get someone's opinion. It don't matter if you're the popular kid or the unpopular kid. It don't matter where you are in the food chain. Someone is going to share their opinion with you. And so even people who I didn't know, other than knowing their name and, they go to my school, they would love to read something of mine and share their opinion. So it was a benefit to me because I got to grow as a writer, because I'm seeing what the readers are, how their perspective is, even though I'm like, okay, I wrote this and this is really what it is, but other people have different opinions, and you start to see this very mysterious thing happening where everyone's reading the same thing, but a lot of times their opinions are different. They're not seeing the same thing that someone else is. And it fascinated me. Like I started thinking about, oh, how can I, be even more mysterious? So a lot of my username with different things that I had was like Mysterious Poe. I was corny, but it just interested me so much how there are so many opinions, and just poetry was so much fun to me because it was like an adventure. It was so flowing in creativity, and it's I can't find words for it. Poetry is just, I think, at the heart of everything. And even in my novels, a lot of times I'll get complimented on different things, and it's because I was a poet first, because of my flow with words, my creativity with words and imagery. That all started from poetry, and it shows through my work now writing novels. But I don't know what it is. I can't I'm always feeling lost almost, because I can't I can't write poetry like I used to. So, but I don't want to force it either. So I try not to force myself to write it unless it just comes to me. But yeah, so that was my journey in high school. Definitely started to beyond starting my passion and my journey of wanting to have this as a career. Outside of that, outside of the educators and outside of, discovering my favorite author, the readership base, I started seeing how important that relationship is and testing the bounds of the relationship between you and your readers. And just the how that relationship can impact you as a writer, having that relationship with your readers. So it was just everything. Everything was high school was everything for my writing career. But then we go on to college. Had my degree up there. It's always a glare. I don't know that, but there's you gotta be in person to see it. Okay. I went to UDC. You can see my shirt. Wore my school hoodie to talk about my schools. But I went to and let me touch base first. Let me go back to the high school with your readership base and center your growth. It also helped me to stand strong in my voice and my creativity. I mentioned that briefly, but mainly when you're hearing all these opinions, it can be hard to stand strong in what you want to write and also stand strong in who you are. Be confident in who you are. Because definitely opinions, they'll have opinions on your writing and also opinions on you. And you have to be able to block out the noise. So high school, if you start off writing and sharing your work in high school, it will help you for your adult career when you are able to try to block out the noise, and not lose who you are to what others want, So, okay. So moving on, I did say UDC, but at first I went to the University of Michigan Flint. And that's where I was majoring in wildlife biology because I love the animals. And I minored in creative writing. So I was able, because of my portfolio from, high school, just keeping all my work, I was able to, as a freshman, get into sophomore level writing classes. And then I was able to get into junior level writing classes, after, that first semester was over. But I didn't stick with I stick with the freshman writing because I knew what I wanted to do and I knew the value of my voice and my work. I was very confident in myself. So I went directly to the professors and talked to them directly. Like, look at my work. Like, you don't have to just listen to me and say, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm really passionate, yada, yada, yada. Like, nah. Look at my poems. Look at my short stories. Look at my work. And then tell me that I can't get into your class. So those who are trying to get into a class, back up what you say. Give them proof. Give them your work so they can read it. So I definitely enjoyed that those classes. And I quickly learned that I wasn't very good at science. I thought, I was going to be with the animals. And I was like, no. Quickly learned that that wasn't the career I wanted. And I did that because even though I wanted to be an author, I wanted to write books as a career, I listened to the noise. I understood that I wasn't going to make money right off the bat. I wasn't going to make enough money to live comfortably. People scared me. I was definitely like, oh no, but what else do I like? What else can I major in? But I also didn't want to give up completely, so I made sure I minored in creative writing, and I took those classes, and that I kept writing poetry even then. And when I was in the classes, when you're in college, you meet people of different cultures, different states, different areas, and your professors they love that red pen, so it definitely humbles you. You get more humbled in college, but you also learn a lot. You learn a lot more, and they force you, that whole free form stuff that I was used to doing and just writing just off of emotion. They force you in college, they force you to be very structured, and that helped me out a lot. Even though I say don't let anyone change your voice, etc., but there's a way to hone your craft, to learn your craft without losing yourself. And I think that's what college did for me, was to teach me about my craft. Like, humble yourself, and also realize if you are in love with this and you want this career, you should also be willing to hone your craft. You should be able to be willing to learn all the structures, everything about literature and writing, and you know forcing yourself to do things that you normally don't want to do. I wanted to only do free form. No, you're gonna do all of everything. I don't teach you about the haikus. I don't teach you about sonnets. I don't teach you about everything, and you have to do it. And then also learning about short fiction and flash fictions and novellas and novels. And you're not going to just do one thing in college. You're going to learn. It's like, oh well, I want to write novels. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this genre. No, they don't care what your career goal is. You have to learn everything. You have to get a taste of everything before well, not before you start your journey, because I put out a poetry book in high school, while I was still in high school. So you can start your journey whenever you want to, but I learned more, and I was able to use more from going to college, from taking those college courses, because it's a different level, and they force you to do certain things. And a lot of people are afraid, say, oh, I don't want to be molded into this. They're not holding a gun to your head. It's just that they are teaching you. They want you to learn these different ways. And after you learn it, you go on and decide what way you want to do things. But you still have to learn it. And there is benefits to learning these structures. Your writing will be better. Your understanding of books and literature will be better. Your viewpoints will be different. It'll help you to grow as a person and as an author, as a writer. But yeah, because I definitely learned a lot of stuff that I wish I learned sooner, especially with the industry. College, a lot of times, hopefully, they'll have people who are in the industry or are connected with people in the industry, and will, invite them as a guest. So you even learn that, and you make connections. So that really helped me out a lot. And with, being better as a writer and understanding and try to be more realistic. I always remember one of my stories I did for class. It was a very cool idea, for me. It was like, oh, so cool. It was like 2011, and it was set in Los Angeles, and I had that it was raining for a scene. This particular scene, it was raining, and the professor hit me with, "Do you know how often it rains in LA? Like, is it realistic to have this scene and have it raining and raining this hard?" And I was like, and she said, well, if it is raining and it doesn't rain very often, the people are going to act differently than a place that's always raining. And it makes you a better writer because you're not thinking like that. You're just writing, especially for someone writing free form poetry. I'm not thinking about, realities. I'm like, oh, it's fiction, you know. It's not real. It's made up. But still, you have to have some basic, some facts. So it made me realize, and when I'm writing now, I'm thinking when I'll catch myself like, wait a minute, is that realistic? I'm writing a book in New York, and it's like the fall and it's winter months. Like my character, there's no snow. There's no. My character is just having a dress and chilling, sitting down on this bench. Like, oh, the bench ain't wet. The bench ain't full with snow. She don't have snow boots on. She have to. It wasn't the travel didn't take longer because it was snow, stuff like that. So I try to be, I'm more, well, I try to be more realistic now with my writing. So education is so important. Again, important to someone's journey. And for me, very important for me as a writer. And then after I went to that school, I went to UDC. And when I was at UDC, I decided to be an English major. So I went ahead and just stopped being afraid. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. When I go to my master's degree or when I do something else, I'll do something else. And that's what I did. Mainly because the school didn't have any literature degrees for the master's program. But I'm happy with my choice in my master's. I did public administration with a concentration in nonprofit management for my master's. And anyone who knows me knows I'm passionate about helping people. I'm very involved in nonprofits, so that was very important to me as a person and what I want to continue to do in my life. Even though I want to have a career as an author, doesn't mean I can't do multiple things. But anyway, I did, for my BA, I did English. And it was so amazing. And I didn't get, the massive, huge, HBCU experience at that would be probably at a bigger school, at a Howard University. But I got teachers of color and students of color, in Michigan, Flint, Michigan. You ain't getting that there. So the books that we read and the conversations we had were, I don't want to say better. I mean, I still rep my Flint, I still rep my school, even though I had some issues with them before. And it's the reason why, I got sick and they didn't care. They wanted some money. I ended up going to UC. I'm happy I ended up going there. But the professors, I had professors of color and professors of other diversities, and they brought their experience to the table with literature and helping me to understand my writing and exposing me to different literature that I wasn't exposed to before. I was exposed to a few here and there during high school, but it was just a little on a very small scale. But in college, you're exposed to so much more. And at an HBCU, your conversations are just multifaceted. It's just different. And you're learning, I didn't know anything about the Harlem Renaissance until UDC. I knew certain stuff, don't get on me. I knew, the very basic information. I knew, what it was, very basic information. But I didn't know it. And I didn't know about other, important authors and important artists that were, authors and artists of color and what they experienced and what that time was really like. You know, you can read a book, or in high school they can mention a certain time of history, but then when you hit to college, you learning facts that you never even knew. You know, you're learning about everything. A lot of these professors, they had, real life experience, so they can really talk about these people and talk about the time during that era. And it's just fascinating to hear the stories. It's like if, I guess, no, I wasn't young enough to really say Jay-Z, but what people like, don't really like him too well as an artist. Yeah, okay, but if someone later on, if I become a teacher, professor, and I'm talking about like Chris Brown, and that his life, and I'm able to talk about him more than you'll just get a little clip it in a little, storybook, or those who grew up with Obama. And, people say, oh, yeah, I know he's the, something president. And, he was there for such and such years. He was very important to us because he's black, blah, blah, blah. Someone can be very general about the information. But if someone, he went to school with, or someone who went to the school in the same neighborhood, who grew up near him and know him, who worked with him, work with someone who worked with him, they have a different perspective. They can tell detail. They can tell, oh yeah, we know he was over here doing this, and just give more of a personal experience. So they lived during that time. And when you hear these professors talk about these authors and these writers, poets, and they have all this information, and it just it just makes everything so much better. So I definitely I read more outside of like my favorite genres. When I was at UDC, I started really focusing on reading for my craft as well. So I don't know if you can see, well, some of my books. I gotta again, I keep saying it. At some point I'm going to. I need to unload a lot of my books. So I buy books now that are nonfiction. And it's not just because of class. And I keep some of the ones even from class that I really enjoyed. Like I have Keys to Great Writing. I have a literature guide. I have Steps to Writing Well, The Practice of Poetry. And then I have bios of authors, because you learn when they tell their story, you learn even more about your craft, and you learn about their lives, and their lives is important to their writing, their experiences and their viewpoints. So it's I learned a different of reading. So I read a lot of nonfiction, a lot more now because of my college experience. And I got introduced to more authors of color that I probably never would have been introduced to, because that's just not the way things go, sadly. And I learned even more about how to voice my opinions and really believe that I can make this a career through those classes with my trying to achieve my English degree. And I will say, I forgot during high school, I will shout out one of my teachers during, I think it was African American literature, maybe. I think we had like a semester of that. It didn't last very long. Shamefully, the teacher, she didn't last long. I don't think it was African American history. It was something. Um, no, I think it was just literature, African American literature. It did not last long, and shame on the school. But that teacher, it might have been history. Maybe that's why it was controversial. Um, can't remember. But we read, where is he? Elan Harris. Now, we read both of them. We read Just As I Am. No, did we read Just As I Am? We did read Invisible Life. I do remember that. But look at all this blackness. Look at all the blackness right here. But we read this book, and at first it was we read him, and you can imagine why. You know, what was 2005, 2006? Why picking this one of his books would have been controversial. How it would have caused some issues with students and some parents, mainly parents. One, it was a black book, but also it featured queer characters, and you know that's a lot of that right now. We in the era of, you know, being more open and stuff like that, but back then, no. I was so surprised. I remember that I didn't have like money, so of course, you know, I had to get money from, you know, my parent, my mom, my grandma, something like that. And you know, it's for school, so so they're not in the dark. So I remember, you know, having to tiptoe around the book like, I don't want to say what it is because I might not be able to get it, and a conversation might be had with the school. And this is I went to Archbishop Carroll, so it's a Catholic school. So a lot of us were so excited for the class, and you know, because it was it was mainly a lot of African American students. So we was excited. I was excited, and then when we was getting the books, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" But I was like, "Wait a minute. Do they know what this book is about? Are we really going to be reading this book here?" So it was funny, but that class, I will say, impacted me because it gave me more exposure to black literature, and it gave me exposure to literature that had diverse characters, and not proudly. I mean, you know, during that time frame, it wasn't very people wasn't really talking about, you know, diversity, you know, queer people and etc. So it was a lot of stereotypes. It was a lot of misinformation going around with different things, and I think a character in the book also has AIDS. So it was just a lot of misinformation, and it helped me grow. And I think that's probably what the point of the teacher, the point the teacher was trying to do for us, was to help us to see people in a different light, and not just what the media promotes, and to show these people differently. And it did help me to, you know, reduce some of my stereotypes, reduce some of the false information that I had. Definitely not fully. I definitely was a kid. I definitely wasn't the best person. Definitely, you know, always tried to be. I'll say that. Always tried to be a very good person, and try to have very strong morals, and always approach everyone with love. But just because you approach someone with love doesn't mean you're always respecting them. So my writing became more bold. I was becoming bolder with my writing. I was being more okay with trying to write multiple, like, diverse in cultures, diverse disabilities, diverse sexual orientation. So I would be remiss if I did not mention that class at all in being exposed to that book. That was the first book. I believe that was the first book ever that had a queer character in it. So, but yeah, there was issues. There was issues because the characters, were queer, because it was, character had AIDS. And we were just, we were really pushing stuff, pushing conversations, pushing books that we were reading in that class. And I was gonna say today it would be better, but no. Today, even you still have states that are sadly trying to ban books, that are trying to was they trying to eliminate, was it race theory? Like, nobody's doing. I'm not gonna get into the politics, but you don't have good diverse in you don't have education that's always telling the full story in everyone's story, sadly. And it is so important. I got that education. I'm so thankful. I am who I am. My books are who they are what they are, because I did get that diverse education. So I definitely had to go back and mention that book in that class, because it gave me that exposure. And then also, I will say, it's not important to my education because it wasn't my classes. I read a lot of Zane in high school. And I think that's probably around the time that I ended up picking up that book. We had to read that book for class. So it made me start searching for books in a different way when I'm in the bookstore looking at different books in a different way. And I definitely read Zane a lot. And in high school, one of the teachers in high school told me that my poetry reminds her of, like, Zane. So I guess because me and Zane, we were just I guess in a sense raw. We were just uncensored, didn't give a damn what people said. And it made me like, wait a minute, who the hell is Zane? So I picked up her books, and I read her books, and I love her. I loved her books as well. So yeah. And then so high school, I was definitely, again, I keep saying high school was the point of it all. Was everything. I was being exposed to a lot of things. I was learning a lot, and my passions for everything started there. And then yeah, so this is a long ass video. So then we already talked about college. So so yeah, what else is there to say about my education journey? Education journey now is over. Except for me trying to teach myself. Okay, so yeah, so I touched with like elementary, middle school, high school, college. So I touched on all of that. So that is my journey. That's my education journey of my writing journey being impacted by my education. Okay, hold on. So yeah, if you all have any questions, any other questions about me, about my journey, about who I am now as a writer, about my books, comment, let me know, and let's have a conversation. Tell me about your education experience. When you start writing or been exposed to books, and when did you get exposed to diverse books? Let me know.